16 Minutes of Care is a podcast based on the CARE principles, a strategic framework that reveals how brands create impact by caring and, as a result, grow their business. In each episode, Isabel welcomes a company executive who explains how CARE has helped their business grow successfully and sustainably.
Outi Sivonen is a well-experienced human resources manager and board member. She wrote a book in 2021 about company culture, and she's a strong believer in collaboration. She is also the Chief Human Resources Officer at Solita, a Finnish tech agency of impact builders. Welcome, Outi.
Thank you so much.
First of all, I would like to understand more about your book, because company culture is really changing. How is it evolving?
Yeah, I would say that there are many reasons on the big change and what is also the book about. The increased amount of transparency which we see in the world, I mean in everywhere basically, with the digitalization and with the tools and channels and everything, that is all happening within companies. So it means that the culture is not something that is owned in the in the top management or in the communications or somewhere, but it's actually something that we are all living and breathing, and which is really kind of tangible in everything. And I think what is the biggest change is that is actually around the communications part, that everyone is kind of producing and absorbing, and everyone is part of the building the joint reality. And this means that we cannot kind of say that what is relevant or what is not relevant. It is built in the community, and in a way we have to just facilitate and enable and to make it inclusive for everyone. But it's like I think that is the biggest change if we compare to 90s or early 20s, that when it was more like that some people could actually kind of more like say that this is the company culture we have, and we have designed it this way.
It was something that was produced by the board of directors or the
management teams,
and now it's way more transformative. How do you say it? Not transformative.
And transparent.
Transparent and throughout the whole company. Is that the reason why you've written a book about it?
I think it was the biggest reason was that I had been in the HR for many years. And then I changed from bigger stock companies into this growth tech company, which was very different platform. And I think it was also for me professionally such a big, kind of identity collapse or something, that how do you do HR in that kind of surrounding? And in a positive way, but I felt like there were so much things that I started to think differently around leadership, around communications, around community building, around autonomy, and all of these things, that then I suddenly realized that, okay, this is going to be a book, because there's so much things that I kind of want to write down and say. And one thing was also that at least that time, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, there was a lot of talk around self-leadership and autonomy, and like the fact that now the companies that it's good to be built around self-leadership. And I to some extent I think so, that it is, people need autonomy and self-leadership is super important. But I think also what the book is about, that we, in order to build a community that works well, you cannot just rely on just leave it up to individuals, do whatever. Because that doesn't actually build a community. People don't know the targets, they don't know what are we actually jointly building, and it's not also, we have to take care of each other. So it's not only about what I want, it's about what makes us a good community. So that was also a little bit bugging me, why do we have all this self-leadership talk everywhere? You just have to have resilience, and you just have to do this and that, and we're trying to find these unicorns in recruitment, and I don't think that you build a community like that. So that was maybe one of the reasons as well.
And your book is written in Finnish, so unfortunately I couldn't read it. Could you give a couple of general insights that for you are important if you want to build a strong company culture, independently if you're in tech or not in tech?
Yeah. I would say that first thing is to kind of somehow be aware of what is your current state. Like, and I think here comes the part that what we talked about earlier on where is it built. So if you think that company culture is what you as an HR director or as a CEO or as a business director think it is, you're probably wrong. So you have to be first aware of, how do I know what it is?
And how do you know it?
Well,
do you measure it? Or?
Yeah. I think one is like, first of all, you have to understand that where is the reality lived? So you have to have enough information. You have to be on those channels where your people are, whether it's a Slack or Teams or whatever digital channels. You have to meet the people. You have to know what is relevant. You have to understand what is relevant for them. And I think a good example is that if you go and ask, like, well, do you think that it's better to have like apples or parents? You might get an answer that, okay, apples. But what if the question is wrong from the beginning? Like, what if you stayed already from the start, like what is relevant, then you're not actually listening. You have to go to your people and ask, what is important to you? What is relevant for you? And what do you value?
And you need to be vulnerable, I suppose, and,
exactly.
and show empathy to be ready for the answers.
Yeah. So you have to, of course, you can collect information in various ways, but I think anyway, to be aware of what is the current state. And then another thing I think in the culture is that it has to be also somehow distinctive. Like if you want to have a culture that has, some kind of a benefit, or it has to be something. So if it's kind of a lukewarm kind of, it doesn't stand for anything, then the culture, as you always have a culture, that's for sure, but maybe then it's not kind of a differentiating factor at all.
And how important is it for your culture to be a differentiator?
Well, I think it's especially, of course, if you are in a business that where you think that people are, or actually, I take it again, every business, not in some business, every business, people are not choosing the company, just based on the industry or based on the, whether it's a big or small or location-wise or something. They're trying to find a community that they can feel they can belong to. And in order to find that, you of course need to have some traits that you can find connection to. No one can feel, build sense of belongingness to a company. Everyone, the only way is that you create the sense of belongingness to a community, which is built by people, and you have to know who are these people and what are the values behind on their ways of working, and so for that reason I think it has to be somehow differentiating, because otherwise you cannot attach it. If it's you can't actually put words around it.
And one of the values that you really are a big fan of is collaboration. What does it do for you, collaboration?
Well, I think every human being we are creatures who want to work together. And not only work, we have to actually be together. And that we have seen like in the whole history of humankind. So I think why the collaboration is so important is that it kind of attaches us to a meaning. Because if you have you appreciate something and I feel that I appreciate the same thing, then we kind of enforce each other, that now actually the thing that we both value, it brings us even more kind of emphasis that, okay, this is meaningful because we all value this. It kind of creates more power. And also, of course, that the collaboration, that is the only way we learn, because human beings don't learn new things, being alone, detached from each other. Everything happens in between.
I fully relate to that, and I fully agree with that. But research on my care principles indicate, we did a benchmark study of 2,000 Belgian employees, and collaboration is one of the worst scores. It doesn't even get to 50%. And internal collaboration only scores 43%. So what keeps people from collaborating?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and I see that as well. And also, if we think of the conflicts in an organization, they are all because of the poor collaboration and poor communication? Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. One is that it takes time. And in business surrounding, usually time is money. So basically it is quicker to do things alone sometimes. It doesn't get you that far, but it gets you over that particular day. And another thing is that sometimes I also see that people think that, or even say that, I am here, you can collaborate with me at any time. I'm here and waiting. So the actual collaboration, it is something that requires an effort. Mm-hmm. And we are maybe sometimes a bit shy when it comes to approaching new people, especially now thinking of all the diversity. We are different, so it's not always super easy. So we just stated, okay, here am I, you can come and approach at any time, but I am not actually doing anything. So even if we do find the meaningfulness in the kind of the connection, it requires effort and it requires time. And sometimes for that reason, we just choose not to do it.
Yes. And you work also with a lot of young people. Is the importance of working with a purpose something that you feel talks more to them compared to older generations?
I think yes. To some extent, I would not say that it doesn't resonate for any other generations. Obviously it does. But I do see that if something is like totally against their values, or if there's no purpose, it's not interesting. And I think also that they're kind of looking for more, like what is the purpose? So, but at the same time, I would not say that it's like that they don't value any other things, like for example, safety at work, or, you know, that they can rely on the, you know, if you're a young family, of course you need to have a secure income and so forth. So it's also the security is important. But I do see that the discussions around purpose and values and like living up to the values, it is really longed for and looked for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. People are working under a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. We have crisis after crisis after crisis. You just said in order to collaborate well, people need time and need to make an effort. But I have the idea that people don't get time anymore and are just pressured. In the Nordics, I think you have a little bit more of a work-life balance compared to the rest of Europe. What could we learn from the Nordics?
I think, at least what I have seen is that it is always the case that in order to kind of two ways that in order for people to work well and to perform and all that, the time is needed at some point. And if you don't take it early enough, you need to take the time when the things have maybe gone wrong. So I'm thinking that it's like preventive work, that if we take enough time to some simple things, we actually avoid of, you know, then taking care of something when it's kind of too late. So maybe the thing is that we see the value of putting that effort. We see it, I mean, in figure-wise, we see it. In if we look at the, at least in my company, that if we put enough time for good onboarding, enough time on kind of discussing on the topics that relate to expectations and how we experience different things and the emotional side and so forth, it creates kind of, it releases so much energy when you don't have to think like, can I say this? Is it allowed? Is it like, should I do this? Should I know that? When it's allowed, then you actually, there's so much potential that people don't use because they're thinking of these things. Mm-hmm. And when you see that, then you kind of see that, okay, it is worth it. I usually get a lot of these questions, okay, what is the return of invest if we put this or that? And I think it's like, you cannot measure it that way, but you do see when you don't have it. Exactly. And you do see the cost of it.
Yeah, totally. I can fully agree with that. Already at the last question, because it's going fast. If you look at taking care of employees as a generic thing, what could be your tips or what could be your insights that you would like to share with the audience?
I think the most important thing is actually the kind of the foundation, the thinking that every human being wants to be seen and heard. They don't want to be a problem that it needs to be solved.
Okay.
So the thinking in these all health and well-being actions or leadership topics or whatever you do on the area, they should not be done from the basis of the people are something we need to fix. Because they are not broken. They are not the problem. So my tip is that please use the time so that people can feel that they are seen and heard.
Very nice tip. And the people are not broken. Maybe the process is broken. Very nice. Thank you so much, Outi, for being here. For the people at home, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening and take care.
Want to create lasting impact with your brand while feeding sustainable growth? Check out thecareprinciples.com and see how we can help you. 16 Minutes of Care is an independent production from Isabel Verstraeten, brand strategist, founder of The Care Principles and author of the book, Does Your Brand Care? Help us reach more companies who are looking for caring and sustainable growth by giving this podcast all the stars it deserves and by sharing it in your network. Thank you and take care.